Welcome to That's Based. Happy Wednesday. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. And we say ladies and gentlemen on this show because as of yesterday, 2 days ago, the United States of America only recognizes two genders. The midweek check-ins are back, though. I'm your host, as always, Caleb Salvatore, reporting from somewhere underground. Brought to you by Outlaw Streamers and our good friends over at Blood of Tyrants Wines. Head over to drinkbloodofTyrants.com. Use the promo code BASED, B-A-S-E-D, like the title of the show, to save yourself 10% off your order at the checkout. That's B-A-S-E-D, based, like the title of the show. Gonna save you 10% off your order at the checkout. They got two types of wine. They got red and white, along with the Liquid Freedom energy drink, as you see right over there. DrinkbloodofTyrants.com. One more time. Promo code BASED, B-A-S-E-D, like the title of the show. Support the brands that support people like us. All right, well, we've got 2 days in the book of President Trump, and world peace has been achieved. Gas is 39 cents a gallon. Eggs are literally so cheap. Like, I walked in and they paid me to take the eggs. It might have had something to do with the fact that I was naked and screaming and waving a gun around, but nonetheless, I'm going to take that one as a win. It seemed like, by the way, the 39 cent gas, they came out and pumped it for me and then washed my car for free. They're giving the shit away. They're just doing so well. I saw a 4-bedroom house on the market for $75,000. If you can, yesterday, if you can get over all the rapes that happened in it, you've got a hell of a deal. But things are going well under President Trump. Things are going in the right direction. Promises made, promises kept, which we're going to be talking about with Jacob Wilson this Saturday, among a bunch of other things for the big show. We're not going over the things he's already done on this show, though. No. We're going over my predictions for the next 4 years, and you're not going to like all of them. That's okay. I'm more realistic, not all glitz and glam like the fake opening monologue I just did was. And I'm going to go over what I think are his biggest priorities. Specifically over the first 100 days, but just presidency as a whole. So let's start this again. I want to remind you guys what I told you the day after the election when we were doing the touchdown dance in the end zone. I stopped and I said, we're going to hold Donald Trump accountable to his campaign promises. Now, I am a realist because I understand that the way the United States government was originally set up was so that someone couldn't come in, assume the office of the presidency, and then enact 100% of their agenda. That is way too volatile of a system. The founding fathers understood that, so they put safeguards into place to make it so that somebody couldn't do that. The reality is, a president who gets what he wants to get done gets about 60 to 70% of that agenda done in a good 4 years, right? Where there's not a bunch of crises and fires he has to put out. But if he's able to operate within reason and minimal pushback from Congress, he'll get about 60 to 70% done with concessions. Because again, that's the way this government's set up. He does not have the margins in the House or the Senate to just do whatever he wants. And I think that's a good thing that there is a little bit of a governor. Because again, like I said, when we establish precedents, we have to ask ourselves when and how are those precedents going to be used against us. So I like the fact that he's not going to be able to run rampant over the Democrats for the next 2 to 4 years, because believe me, as we know, power changes hands, the pendulum swings in this country, and they will turn around and run rampant over us. So with that said, let me go into his priorities. Let's talk about the number one priority for Donald Trump specifically. Well, I think it's specifically over the next 100 days, but 100% definitely within this year. The first thing he needs to get done, and it's the issue I've been screaming at all of you about. Does anyone want to take a guess what I'm about to say? The issue that I've been screaming at all of you about, my single favorite thing Donald Trump did from his first term that I've said we absolutely positively need to extend when he takes office. I told you guys, if you aren't going to vote for Donald Trump for any other reasons, do it for this one alone, because Kamala's promised to let these expire. If you guess the tax cuts you're correct. And it looks like they're working on a deal to extend those. The Trump tax cuts absolutely need to be extended or made permanent because, again, I told you guys, if those expire, like Harris was promising to let them, with absolutely no contingency plan, by the way, every single one of you was going to see a 3.5% raise. That's not including the additional corporate taxes. So Donald Trump, first and foremost priority, let's get these tax cuts extended. They're very, very popular. The Democrats and the media have done a good job blasphemizing these things and telling people about how horrible they are and running their usual fear campaigns. But the Trump tax cuts had a net positive on just about everyone's life that's listening to this. Now, some of you may have noticed that your tax returns are not as big, but that's by design, because a tax return is really just an interest-free return on a loan that you gave the government throughout the year. The way it was intended was so that less money would be withheld throughout the year. You'd have bigger paychecks, thus more spending power, because your dollar today is worth more than your dollar will be in April when you get your tax return, thanks to this little thing called inflation. So that's priority number one. Let's make the tax cuts permanent. Priority number two, let's get this Ukraine thing figured out. That does not mean send more money over there. But the reality is, and we'll talk more about this Saturday, he put a 90-day freeze on foreign aid, which I agree with. I've been saying that's one of the things we need to do. But he put a 90-day freeze on foreign aid. The reality is, you just basically gave Russia this little indicator that, hey, you can start making some real hard moves for the next 90 days, because let's face it, without our money, Ukraine's fucked. So you need to strike a treaty. And Ukraine might not like this. They may have to give up a little bit of territory, but this is territory that these guys don't even want to be there over in the Donbass region. So Ukraine might not like this, but they're going to have to cede a little bit of territory to protect their entire national sovereignty. So you need to strike that deal with Ukraine, and you need to do it quickly. Get Ukraine and Putin to the table, because if you don't, like I said, Ukraine's going to fall apart, and Vlad might start feeling a little frisky and decide to go into Finland, and then we got a real fucking problem, okay? And this honeymoon with Trump could turn into a disaster very, very quickly if we don't get this Ukraine thing figured out in the first 100 days. The next thing, he needs to make good on the TikTok deal, specifically as it pertains to the midterms, but just going forward when it comes to Gen Z interactions. One of the things Trump has prided himself on early is being the one who initially saved TikTok. Now, that doesn't matter if you can't save it permanently. You bought them that extra 90 days, and they thanked you for it, but the fact you made a big spectacle about it right after you saved it when it was going to get banned under Biden's term comes with a little bit of a risk to it. There's a little bit of a risk element. You're taking a little bit of a gamble. You better hope you have this in the bag, and it's something that you can get pulled off quickly, because I'm telling you right now, like I said, these kids are addicts with TikTok, and if you take an addict's fix away, they're going to remember it, right? These kids, they're not going to get sober. They're going to go on to the next app. But come election time, they're going to say, oh, yeah, Trump made a big deal about, quote unquote, saving TikTok and then couldn't close the deal for us. I remember that. I'm voting Democrat or I'm staying home. You never follow through on your promises, because that's how these kids' brains work, because they're 7-second intervals and then they're done, right? So he needs to get the TikTok deal done. Again, you could have let it get banned under Biden. You could have blamed the Democrats and took the political win. He took a gamble that has the potential to pay off in much higher dividends if he closes the deal. Next, making sure the Israel-Gaza treaty is carried out. It sounds like we're already starting to get some hostages released, and I'll get into this in my predictions in a little bit here. But this is obviously, anytime you're dealing with the Middle East and radical Islam, you're dealing with an extremely volatile situation, an extremely volatile situation. So you need to make sure that this is facilitated correctly. He's already cast a little bit of doubt upon it, says that's their thing over there. I don't know what I can do with it. I only have so much control, which is true, but he'll still get crucified for it in the media. Following through on promises that are attainable by executive order. So if this is something you can, which I think the executive power of the presidency is out of control, by the way, but the game is what it is. Let's play by the rules that have been put in front of us. Like I said, precedents, right? Now the Democrats get to take their medicine from what they did under Obama for 8 years and then 4 more under Biden. If you can get it done under an executive order, do it in the first week. All the promises you made that are easy, the pardons, the Ross Ulbricht, all of it, get it done in a couple of days. Get it done in your first couple of days. Get that out of the way, right? Appease the people. Easy promise. These are layups. Don't miss the layups. You've already been there, done it. There's no excuse. If you made the promise that you were going to do it on day one or in the first week as an executive order, you know it's something you can do. Go in there, get it done. Don't give them any reason to say you went back on a promise on an easy one, because there are going to be promises you're not going to be able to keep, and I'll get into that in a little bit later. No fault of your own necessarily, but there are going to be promises you can't keep just due to politics and gridlock, et cetera, et cetera. The last thing is he needs to accomplish his loftier goals in his first 2 years. The midterms are never friendly for incumbent presidents. Very rarely are they friendly, I should say. Sometimes they don't hurt as bad as they normally do, like we saw with the quote-unquote red wave back in 2022 under Biden. But nonetheless, you need to accomplish your loftier goals within your first 2 years, specifically the tax cuts. Tax cuts. If you take nothing else from this, let it be tax cuts. Call your congressman. Let them know you want to extend the tax cuts. So your corporate income tax as well, though, that's not included in the Trump tax cuts, all those need to get accomplished in the first 2 years. Because like I told you, the Democrats are not going to lie down. They're not going out without a fight. They're going to come back roaring and ready, more ready than ever. That is how the machine works. You have to be prepared for that, and you have to accomplish most of what you want to do domestically within the first 2 years because of that. Okay. Now let's go to my predictions. Let's go to my predictions. So here's my predictions, not necessarily for the first 100 days, but for the next 4 years. For the next 4 years. You want my honest prediction? Honest prediction. To summarize all of this, I think, and this is not good for me as someone who works in media, that when I can sensationalize things, it benefits me and I can rile people up. But I think domestically, the things that are... I shouldn't say domestically. I think the things that are within the realm of the federal government's control that Donald Trump will be able to truly affect the outcome of, I think the next 4 years are going to be pretty chill. I think cancel culture is coming to an end. The Democrats are realizing that, and they're retreating back to echo chambers. So the mixture of the two extremes from both sides and the chaos is going to die down as these people continue to dig their heels in and just begin to isolate themselves from society. Now, that could lead to some outbursts, but I think the political polarization is dying down, and that's simply based on the fact that way more people are willing to accept Donald Trump than they were 8 years ago when he first got elected, and that's a very, very promising sign. It tells me that people are like, okay, he wasn't as bad as they told us. Of course, there's still the unhinged psychopaths and lunatics. That's going to happen no matter what. But I think the general consensus on Trump is people are starting to view it the same way you had the general consensus on a Mitt Romney or a George Bush or a John McCain, which was that, yeah, I didn't want him to win, but it's not the end of the world. We'll deal with it in 4 years, regroup, and figure it out. That's the vibe I get from most Democrats. You don't see as many people who are as unhinged and crazy about Trump. That's if you notice, I'm not talking about the loudmouths on the internet. I'm talking people that aren't terminally online, people I interact with in my daily life. That's the vibe I'm getting. People I respect who were really afraid of Trump 8 years ago don't really seem to be all that worried. They're like, yeah, it is what it is. We'll deal with it. It's not all that bad. We got to be willing to work with the other side. That's the vibe I get from the mainstream moderate Democrat that 8 years ago was terrified of Donald Trump. Now it's, yeah, I'm not thrilled, but let's work with the guy. This is what we got to do. So I think we're going to have a chill 4 years. I really do. From the federal government's perspective. Doesn't mean shit's not going to happen. Doesn't mean we're not going to have controversies. Tune in and you'll know about them. But I think it will be a welcome, a cheerful welcome 4 years when we compare it to the last 7 or 8. Okay, let's go to my real predictions now. My predictions: TikTok deal struck within the first 90 days. Saves TikTok. U.S.-owned company acquires it, and we're good. I think the TikTok deal gets done. I think he gets that done. I think that's one of his first major victories as president, is he gets the TikTok deal done. Would not be surprised, honestly, if he gets it done by the end of January. February at the latest. Like, my guess is by Valentine's Day, you guys are going to be able to take those corny videos with filters and call it good. So I think the TikTok deal gets done. I think the second major success that happens, again, within the first year, maybe not the second major success, but one of the first major successes we're going to see of his second term is the U.S. is going to acquire Greenland, and we're not going to do it through military intervention. I think there's going to be a deal struck, and the reason I say that is because there's way too much smoke around this for there to not be a little bit of fire here. This isn't like where he was trolling Canada. There's a lot of smoke around this Greenland thing, and the Danish government seems willing to come to the table. By the way, I had no idea Denmark owned Greenland until this. Thank you, President Trump, for the geography lesson. See, the education system is also improving in this country under Donald Trump. I think the U.S. acquires Greenland, and I think there's a deal that's struck that benefits both sides. Speaking of Greenland and foreign affairs, I think that the U.S. does not seize ownership of the Panama Canal. Again, I don't think there's a military invasion. I wouldn't support that, and we would rightfully call him out on that. But I think that the U.S. is going to strike a deal that allows Panama to maintain ownership of the Panama Canal while giving the U.S. maybe a little bit of special oversight that no other country has, and maybe a little special privilege on the back end while we're at it. I think that happens. I don't see any major changes there. I don't think we're going to get it back. I think, but I do think there is some middle ground that's found there. Again, that's one of those things. There's a lot of smoke around it. Something's going to get done, and we may end up dragging Panama kicking and screaming into it, but it's something I see getting done. Okay, let's go to the next one. China eases off Taiwan. I don't think we see the combative... China already started to ease off Taiwan as it became more abundantly clear how the United States presidential election was going to go. So that's a trend that I think is going to continue. I don't think we're going to see the inflammatory rhetoric about invading Taiwan. Could be totally off on this one, but I think China respects Trump a whole lot more than they respect Biden, and they're not willing to play him on the Taiwan situation. I also think China sees Donald Trump as someone who incentivizes bringing back American manufacturing. And I'm going to get into what I mean by American manufacturing in a little bit here. But I think they see Donald Trump as someone who prioritizes American manufacturing that is going to make a lot of these things that get made in Taiwan within North America. I'll put it that way, and then I'll tell you what I mean by that in a little bit. He's going to make a lot of these products that we need to run our country here outside of Taiwan, which will decrease the value. So China doesn't see the incentive to take it over the way they once did. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, let's talk about our first failure. Should we talk about our first failure? What did I tell you guys right after the election? I said this is not going to be the Donald Trump ball washing hour for the next 4 years. That's not what we're about here. We're going to applaud his victories, which he's already had a few. And we're going to call him out on his shortcomings when they were within the realm of possibility. This isn't necessarily one of those shortcomings that would be within the realm of his control. I think this is something he got a little bit overzealous on. Nonetheless, DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, is a disappointment in terms of cutting government spending. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't start a more national movement that inspires people to want more audits and more efficiency within the federal government and its spending. But I don't think you're going to see Elon Musk, and Vivek's evidently already walked away because he's running for governor of Hawaii now. I don't think you're going to see them make a ton of cuts. You'll see a little bit, you'll see some changes, but I don't think that's going to be the massive success that a lot of people got their hopes up on. I think there's some of it'll be their own fault, and then some of it'll be no fault of their own because there's so much red tape and so many protections from these bureaucrats that it's impossible to just move in and fire them like you're acquiring a private company. Okay, it's going to require a whole bunch of law changes, and Trump's going to have other priorities he's not going to want to get done within the... It's a whole thing. I don't see it being successful. Next one, education reform. No, I don't think he's going to abolish the federal Department of Education like all you idiots riled everybody up about with Project 2025. By the way, when's the last time you've heard that? But with Project 2025 during the 2024 election cycle, I don't think he's going to abolish the federal Department of Education. Wish he would, but he's not going to. Instead, I think we see a pivot on the national attitude toward education. I think you're going to, and we'll talk about this on Saturday as well, but I think you're going to see U.S. public education focus more on workforce preparedness and practical skills than you will on social awareness and a lot of these artsy-fartsy things. Doesn't mean they're not going to teach kids English and art and all that stuff, but you're going to see more of a focus. I think more of the elective classes are going to be centered around making sure kids have the skills that they need to succeed in life. And that may not be I'm not just saying white collar jobs and stuff like that, but woodworking, things along those lines, skills they can actually use that will translate into a career or some type of business they can start, maybe entrepreneurial training in the future. Next one. Mass deportations don't happen is what I have. I have it all written down. I've been taking notes throughout the last couple of days, just jotting my thoughts down. You guys should try that sometimes. Your comments wouldn't be so unhinged in the Rumble live chat. But it says mass deportations don't happen, but border is controlled and violent criminals are removed from the country. So I don't think you're going to see, I know they're going to try, but I don't think you're going to see them successfully remove every single illegal immigrant or anything even close to that from this country. With that said, I think they stop the cancer from growing and they cut the choke points off at the border. And I think the ones that are in here that we know are violent criminals are gone. Good as gone. I think the ones that commit any type of crime, and that crime can be anything from rape to shoplifting, gone the second it happens. So while they're not going to get everybody, they are going to get the ones that are here causing problems. And I think they're going to, of course, you can't prevent 100% of illegal border crossings, but I think they're going to prevent a large number of illegal border crossings going forward. My next prediction, trans people will be put into a concentration camp. No, I didn't think that because I'm not an unhinged lunatic that listens to left-wing grifters and commentators that intentionally rile you up while saying I'm committing an act of violence by calling a biological man a male, but they're not when they tell a group of people that suffers from mental illness at 4 times the national rate that the president of the United States wants to genocide them, even though they know that's not the case. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think anything's going to happen to gay people or trans people or anything like that. I think you guys are largely going to be left alone. And you'll be lied to, and it's fine. Continue to buy the line of bullshit, but how much you guys want to bet that you're still alive and kicking 4 years from now? And if you're not, it wasn't because Trump put you in a concentration camp. I don't think Trump thinks about you guys near as much as you think he does. The next one, speaking of immigration, I told you I'd come back to this. I think this is a bolder prediction I have here, and I have no indication, no insider knowledge that this is going to happen. But I think Trump is going to oversee an explosion in manufacturing jobs, not in the United States, on the North American continent, in Mexico. I think what he's going to realize as a businessman, and again, this is just me looking at trends, and this is something I could see happening. This is a bolder one, probably one of them I'm least confident in, but nonetheless, I think Trump is going to take a look at how expensive it would be to manufacture things in the United States. I think he likes the idea of it, but he's going to see what that would do to prices if we start mandating people manufacture things in the United States. I think he's got this president of Mexico down there, this Jewish socialist woman, Mexican woman, who's trying to play a little hard-nosed, and I think he's eventually going to get her to come to the table and say, let's do this. And instead of just putting up a border wall, finishing a border wall to prevent people from coming across the border illegally, I think Donald Trump is going to say, let's strike a deal that makes it easier to manufacture goods in Mexico and ship them here. So again, this kills two birds with one stone, right? You're making it cheaper to bring the goods in because they don't have to come over on ships and everything. You're not dealing with countries that hate us or countries that are a little bit more unstable, like Taiwan, Pakistan, you name it. And you're also removing a lot of the incentive for a lot of the illegal workers to come here. So if you get some type of free trade agreement with Mexico that they can manufacture X, Y, and Z products down there, and we're not going to throw tariffs on it, I think that could be beneficial in a couple of different ways. From the manufacturing perspective, and from the manufacturing perspective, that we don't have to worry about things like microchips getting cut off because they're halfway across the world by a foreign adversary. They're right in our backyard. Nobody's going to fuck with Mexico, especially not if we have those kind of assets down there. And it's going to provide people in Mexico with jobs, thus removing the incentive for them to come across the border to the United States. I think this is a win-win. I think the president of Mexico could see this as a win and a chance to buddy up to Trump. And I think everybody, I don't see how anyone's pissed at this. This is a win for everybody. Well, everybody in this continent, I guess. That's because it'd be more expensive to make them in Canada, obviously. But Mexico, yeah, you could get cheaper labor down there, and you could nip. Can I get on the phone with the president of Mexico and Trump? Like, give me out a three-way call. That would be disgusting. Three-way call with the two of them, and let me tell them how to fix this problem. I can bring everybody to the table real quick. We'll have a couple beers, Coronas. We'll do the thing, right? Let me talk to him. I think this is a brilliant idea that I haven't heard anyone even suggest yet. Tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, next one. I think we're going to see him be a little bit lighter on tariffs than a lot of people expected. And I said this before he even got elected. I said tariffs are a stick and a negotiating tool that you use to get what you want out of other countries. Tariffs become problematic when they become a primary and permanent revenue generator for a government. So I think the tariffs, we'll see some, but I don't think it's going to be the drastic change that a lot of people were expecting. There was a lot of the fear-mongering around it. His rhetoric recently in his inaugural press conferences was soft around tariffs, which we all know that's one of my concessions with Trump, is how big of a fan he is of tariffs. So it seems like he's going to be a little bit lighter with those than a lot of people thought, and that is a very promising development. Next one, I've got domestic oil production skyrockets, gas prices plummet. I think that goes without saying because oil prices are based on futures. You had a president who can say whatever he wanted in Joe Biden, but it was very, very clear he wasn't just anti-energy, he was anti-domestic energy. With the policies he set on offshore and in domestic drilling, with the regulations he threw on the energy industry, it was very, very clear he was anti-energy. They saw 4 years of Biden as very damaging, which is why gas prices went up almost immediately when he got elected and why they went down almost immediately when Trump got elected. Now they've stabilized a little bit because of the holidays and everything, obviously, but I think you're going to see them continue to plummet over the next year, at least until the summer, as we start to see a much, much, much more pro-energy and energy independence presidential administration taking hold. Next up, RFK does not necessarily succeed from a policy standpoint on the changes he wants to make to food, beverages, and drugs, but he sparks a national conversation and movement that will eventually lead to policy successes in the future. Again, I think this is going to be one of those situations like with Elon and the Department of Government Efficiency. It won't be any fault of his own. I think he's going to get in there and say, oh my God, this is going to be way tougher than I thought it was. There's way more red tape around this shit than I thought there was. This is going to be a lot longer, going to take a whole lot more work than we initially believed. But like I said, RFK is not a doctor. He's a lawyer. We've known that. We're not expecting RFK to go in there and cure cancer and all these different diseases. What we are expecting him to do is go in there and find the problems, because that's what lawyers are good at. Go in there and find the issues, identify them, and make them public so that we can begin making the conscious choice and we can pressure our elected officials into sparking real policy change. So I think, yeah, he's going to create a movement like we have never seen with some, because we'll never have had, I mean, yeah, you had the Michelle Obama lunch thing, but you've never had a concentrated effort from the top, because they've always wanted to talk about obesity, but they've never really talked about what goes into it. We've never had a concentrated movement from the top in Washington, D.C. that has directly focused on alerting people as to what is in the things they're eating and drinking and the drugs they're taking. They've never wanted to do that because they've always been these people's corporate sponsors. They would always say, yeah, obesity's bad, get up and move. But they'd never say, hey, these foods that you're eating, these things you're drinking, this medicine you're taking, it's making it so much harder for you to lose weight. This is part of the reason you're so fat. And I think that RFK is going to start a real national conversation around that. He's going to wake a lot of people up. And I think policy is eventually going to come, maybe a little bit slower than we would have liked. But I think policy change will come, real meaningful policy change as far as what we eat and drink and what type of medicines they pump into us, vaccines, you name it, in the not so distant for some and distant for others future. Next up, I have Russia and Ukraine deal in the first 100 days. Like I said, I think that's on the top of his priority list. We know he's frozen U.S. foreign aid for the next 90 days. Immediately, this becomes a priority for Trump to get this deal with Russia and Ukraine done. It's also one of the top things he ran on. He's the negotiator, said, I'll have a deal done within my first 100 days in office. All right, clock's ticking, done. Let's get this done now. Let's get Russia and Ukraine to the table. Let's do the damn thing. What do we got next here? Hostages freed. Let's stay on foreign policy. Hostages freed, but Israel deal falls apart. So I think you're going to get these hostages from Israel freed over there. And that's the big deal right now. But I don't think you're going to see... Ooh, that was close. I don't think you're going to see a permanent ceasefire. And that's just because of how volatile that region is. I don't trust Israel. I certainly don't trust Palestine. One of them is going to start popping off. The reality is they had a ceasefire until October 6th of 2023. Now they don't. One group didn't honor it. So I think it's only a matter of time. You're dealing with extremists. As long as they can get the hostages out, that's the big policy win there. And he said it himself. That's their war. Now, I would like to see him keep that promise and stop funding, quote unquote, their war. Let's put your money where your mouth, or lack of money thereof, where your mouth is. Okay. Next one. Well, we got a lot of predictions here. We'll see how many of these are right. And when I get them all right, I can come on the air and go,
I'm the Messiah.
But next one here. I've got... Ooh, which one should I do next? I have got cultural shift continues. Liberals are no longer cool anymore. Now, this is contingent upon early success. If you see early economic success, early foreign policy success, early success with the TikTok deal, I think that liberals are going to continue to lose ground. They're going to come off as unhinged. You're going to see more and more pop culture and sports figures specifically identifying with Donald Trump and the Republican Party and the MAGA movement. And you're going to see a total shift where it's almost like, remember when like conservatives were the ones that were wanting to ban the Korn albums because they thought they were satanic or whatever? It's going to be the other way around. You're going to see liberals wanting to ban music and comedy and all different types of art and getting them taken away from movies. And they're going to look, or getting movies taken out of theaters, and they're going to look like the ones with the sticks up their asses. I think that's going to be a welcome change. It's about time the culture shifted that way. They're going to fail, though. That's the best part, because they're going to lose. Just like conservatives did, because you shouldn't try to censor speech, music, comedy, art, whatever the case may be. I don't care what it says. Free speech is free speech. It's a two-way street. And if we want to have it, if we want the things we say to be protected, the things they say have to be protected as well. That's just the way it goes. Doesn't mean we can't disavow it and challenge it, but we have to respect their right to say it. Next up here, it says splintered Democratic Party. So I think the Democrat Party is going to continue this civil war that it's in. You've got a few of them from both the moderate and the more radical progressive side. The moderates being folks like Van Jones, the progressives being folks like Cenk Uygur, that are pointing out the obvious flaws. And you've got a lot of people covering their ears going, la, 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 eyes wide shut, right? Don't want to hear it, and they want to continue to double down on the woke shit. You're going to have people that say, let's focus on policy, versus the people who want... That's the crazy part about this, is this isn't going to be your traditional civil war of extremists versus pragmatists like you see in every political party. No, there's going to be both on both sides for the Democrat Party here over the next 4 years. You're going to see a civil war between the Democrats who want to focus on policy and the Democrats who want to focus on social justice virtue signaling. And the ones who want to focus on policy are the ones with the winning formula. The ones who want to continue virtue signaling, again, from both the pragmatic and the extremist wings of the party, are going to be the reason their party continues to sink. So I got splintered Democrat Party. A lot of people thought that was going to be Trump with the Republicans and the Never Trump movement and everything, but it wasn't the case. Next up, I said unexpected friends and unexpected enemies. The president of Mexico could potentially be an unexpected friend if you go with my idea. We've already seen this. Folks like Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos coming out of the woodwork. Now, I would be very, very careful when the three richest men in the world all of a sudden have done a total 180 on you, being Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg. I would be very, very careful, Donald Trump, when the basically everybody but Google in the tech sector in the United States, within Apple, with any sway, has seemingly done a 180 on you overnight. Now, these people know that you're big on relationships, and if they've heard that if they kiss your ass, well, they might be able to get their way. I would just be wary. Look, it's better to have these guys on your side than it is to have them against you. But I would keep them at a healthy distance. I would be very, very wary if all of a sudden the most powerful people on earth just wanted to get to me. They wanted us, they all who didn't like me and were highly critical of me in the past, all of a sudden want to act like my best friend. I would be very, very wary of that. And I think Susie Wiles, as chief of staff, she's going to do a phenomenal job. Again, not a DEI hire. Got it on merit. A woman who got the job on merit. That's what we love to see in this country. Got no problem with it. I'm not the sexist that you retards try to paint me as sometimes. Let's go to the next one here. Mike Johnson does not go into the 2026 midterms as speaker. There's a spicy one. I see Johnson as a yes man and a doormat. I don't think he's ever been an effective speaker. I think he's a sellout who's pissed off both wings of the Republican Party, the MAGA movement, and some of the more moderate traditional conservatives. Nobody likes him. The Democrats don't like him. There is no respect for Mike Johnson in Congress. It's only a matter of time, given Trump's nature, that Johnson pisses Trump off and he turns on him. I don't think Vance is going to piss him off. I know someone said that in the group. I think Vance is smart. I think he knows that if the next 4 years just go decently, he's going to dog walk whoever the Democrat nominee is, and he's willing to sit in the background and play politics. He'll shut up. Trump would basically have to fuck his wife for Vance to go off on him here. But I think Mike Johnson, we see the downfall of Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House. I don't see it lasting over the next 2 years, which could serve a not so good message going into the 2026 midterms. It sends the message of chaos. Okay, I got two left. One good one, or one bad one, and two good ones. Which one do you guys want to hear? I'll do one good one, then the bad one, then the other good one. How about that? Crypto and stocks see growth at least 3 out of 4 years. I already checked my stocks before going in. They're already up. I think that's going to continue to be the case. I think Trump is going to... He's not going to crack down on crypto, but he's obviously... Again, we'll talk Saturday. But some of the early moves he's made and some of the things he said, some of the indications he's made show that he is going to be a very, very crypto-friendly president. Hopefully some of the volatility in that market will go away. We'll see a little bit more stability. And then I think stocks go without saying. The stock market has been especially kind to him since they saw that he's maybe a little bit softer than they initially feared on tariffs. They also know that tariffs are going to be a little bit more complicated given some Supreme Court rulings over the last couple of years about the scope of the executive branch. It would almost certainly be challenged in court at the very least. You've also got slim margins in Congress, probably not enough votes to get some of his more aggressive tariffs through. So I think the stocks are going to grow for the next 3 out of 4 years. At least. You could very well see growth 4 out of 4 years, honestly. Actually, now let's be bold. Let's change it. 4 out of 4 years, you see stock and crypto growth. Now, that doesn't mean that your stocks... I'm not a financial advisor. I have to preface this. This is not advice. Go see someone who's licensed and knows what the hell they're talking about. I'm a radio blowhard running his mouth on a show. But I think that... I got to clarify. That doesn't mean stocks are going to go up every single day. That's not how the market works. But I think on December 31st of 2025, the S&P 500 will be higher than it was on January 1st of 2025. That's my only prediction. Not a financial advisor. Talk to someone. They may have a totally different take than me. That's just how I feel about it. Next up, let's talk. Here's a spicy one. Grocery prices. Oh, the big one, the controversial one. You guys know how I feel about grocery prices. It's not the grocery prices that have upset me with the Trump campaign. It's the messaging around the grocery prices. It's almost like they're setting themselves up for failure because it's easier to just say grocery prices than foster an economic climate that encourages wage growth. Grocery prices, for the most part, don't go down. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's like I've said, prices are always going to go up unless we're in a state of deflation, which we're never going to be in. But prices are always going to go up. The reason you didn't feel inflation during the first 3 years of Donald Trump the way you felt it over basically all 4 years of Joe Biden is because into the Trump administration, back when they calculated inflation the old way, not the modified way that Biden has used, it's you take whatever the rate is they have right now and double it. That's what it actually is. Not the modified version Biden used to make himself look better. But by the real inflation rate, Donald Trump, under him, wage growth was anywhere between 2 to 3 times higher than the rate of inflation, which is why you guys didn't seem to feel the inflationary effects under President Trump in his first administration. Under Biden, well, flip it. At the very best case scenario, toward the end of his presidency, if you go by the old inflation calculator, not the new shit they made up at the beginning of the year a couple years ago, right before the midterms, so they could lie to you about what the inflation rate was. If you go by the old inflationary calculator, which compares it to 2 years ago instead of 1, Biden's best years, he about broke even. That's why you're not feeling it. So while I don't think grocery prices will decrease, I think Trump will create an economic environment where wage growth once again outpaces inflation, and you won't feel the grocery prices. Now, the problem with this is Republicans ran stupidly on grocery prices because it was a buzzword that everybody was pissed off about. So I get it. While it paid off in the short term, it may come back to bite us in the ass in the next 2 to 8 years. Because while wage growth may very well outpace inflation, a lot of you guys that got elected specifically brought up grocery prices. So if bacon right now is $5.99, even though it was $2.99 4 years ago, and 2 to 4 years from now, it's $6.29, the Democrats will be able to go, look, the prices didn't go down. They lied to you. They were wrong. Even though you're making more money. And you have more money left over at the end of every paycheck. You're traveling, you're saving money, you're investing, putting money away for your kids' college fund, bought a house, whatever the case may be. You'll stop and go, wow, they were right. Grocery prices didn't go down. They lied. They failed us there. One of their top 5, their top 3 major campaign promises. And I know it was to address the grocery prices, but you know that's going to get misconstrued. You know people are going to take that out of context and just assume you mean you're going to lower grocery prices. So we did set ourselves up for failure with the grocery price thing. Last one. And this is contingent upon the tax cuts getting passed, which I think are going to happen, and the corporate tax cuts. So I think this is a good one. Let's end on a positive note. I think the tax plan gets passed. We see a very aggressive tax plan that focuses on supply side economics. And you see 50% of working Americans within the first 2 years, working Americans, not working for themselves, salaried, hourly employees. I think you see 50% of working Americans receive a pay raise of 10% or more after these tax bills get passed through, because that's what happened 8 years ago. So a lot of people working for mid-major or major companies, when those tax cuts got pushed through, because the tax cuts not only helped them, they helped the companies that they were working for. Those people got substantial raises, not your normal 3.5%, big raises. I mean, this was 8 years ago. I was working at a job at the time that I got a 40% raise. 35% raise where I was at. That's substantial. That won't be everybody, but it'll even out to about 5 to 10%, I think. Now, I think that the extension of the Trump tax cuts, the companies will see that and they'll get a little excited, be like, okay, we got a real good economic environment coming in here. And then I think an additional, if they really can, he wants to drop the corporate income tax rate from 28 to 21%, which is about on par with the rest of the world. I know everyone thinks it's a drastic cut, but these socialist countries and shit, their corporate income tax, most of them are lower than ours over in like Nordic countries. I think if he can even do half that, if he can get it to 24, 25%, massive policy success. Massive success there. And again, I think the workers reap the companies are, of course, going to reap the benefits because of corporate profits and whatnot, but the workers are also going to reap the benefits. And a good deal is a state of mind. If you feel that more money's in your pocket and you have more spending power, then that's great. So you're going to get a tax cut and you're going to get a raise. Your dollar inflation is going to remain under control. Your dollar is going to go further. I think, like I said, guys, the next 4 years are going to be chill. I really think they are. I know everyone's expecting chaos because it's Trump and blah, blah, blah. I think he's learned. I think he went into the job with no experience. I can actually do that. Left, and now he's coming back with a full head of steam and knows how to get the deals done, knows how to navigate bureaucracy and Washington, D.C. red tape bullshit. He knows how to do all of this. And I think we're all going to reap the benefits of it. I think we're going to look back on it in the history books 50 years from now, overwhelmingly positive. I think history will view him in a positive light. And I'm optimistic because while you all know that I have my reservations with some of his policies, I don't think he has the votes in Congress to get most of the bad policies I don't like accomplished. While I think he does have the power, whether it be through executive authority, negotiations, or having the votes in Congress, to get a lot of the good stuff done, even if he has to make a couple concessions and can't quite deliver on it 100%. I think it's going to be a good 4 years. Lower taxes, world peace, more stable economy. I mean, how do you go wrong with that? I mean, imagine being upset that you had more, like all these retard liberals, they're all pissed off. Imagine being mad that you're going to have more money and not live under the constant fear that we're about to get fucking nuked. There's no pleasing you idiots. But I do want to say, I want to have a little compassion to end the show for some of you that are freaking out. I know there's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety from some of maybe our more liberal listeners. And I want to let you guys know that I'm here. I'm here, and I'm also undergoing a lot of that same stress and anxiety that you are. You know, it's really stressing me out not knowing what I'm going to do with all the extra money I'm going to save in the Trump economy. I get really depressed knowing that I'm not going to be able to think about the constant threat of World War III and my family members getting drafted and blown up for a country that wouldn't piss on us if we were on fire. You know, I went to the grocery store and took one last look at the high prices last night before they were gone. It really brought a tear to my eye. Made me sad. You know, I am going to miss spending exorbitant amounts of money on waffles and apples, you know, milk. I'm going to miss it. So we're going to be holding group therapy sessions here on That Space with Caleb Salvatore every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, where we'll hold each other, we'll hug each other, we'll cry, we'll laugh, we'll talk about the good old days. You know, when the government was targeting political opponents and arresting their opponents for doing the things they were actually doing and intentionally antagonizing multiple nuclear superpowers at the same time while squandering our money away and probably embezzling a lot of it for themselves. We're going to look back on those days and reminisce about how much... What did Andy Bernard once say? I wish there was on The Office, I wish there was a way to know you were in the good old days before you actually left them. Well, we're going to look back on the good old days of the Biden administration. All the crime and drugs and sex, that embroiled the whole administration, the scandals, the war, the economic distress, the high gas prices, all the different global crises. Is it crises? Crises? I don't know. You tell me in the comments. We're going to get through these next easy 4 years together, though, guys. I promise you. Stay strong. Cheat on your taxes, not your spouse. And stay based, too.